Hi, this is Denise.
Hey, this is Maggie.
Welcome to our podcast, Candor and Courage at Work.
Denise and I have known each other for a long time, a couple of decades, HR pros, and we thought it might be helpful if we got together and shared some of the things that we've learned along the way.
That's right, Maggie. Many struggle with being candid and being courageous, and we just want to use what we've learned to help you use those traits in your daily work life.
Here's hoping that makes you more successful. And here we go. Welcome to the first episode of Candor and Courage at Work. We have been giving this a lot of thought. And I think that is because we really have that overarching intent to help people be better leaders.
Yeah, when we first got together and talked about doing a podcast, that was one of our visions, were to make sure that what we learned along the way, we could impart to others and maybe pave a smoother road for them, avoid some of the bumps that we experience.
Yeah, that's always better if you have the opportunity to vicariously live the experience of getting the test first and the lesson later. If we can fast forward that for someone, that's great. Before we really talk about candor and courage, though, I think it's important to provide a little context for folks. Kind of the who, what, where, when, why, how are we doing this? So let's just start with the who.
Okay.
I am Maggie Carrington. I have been an HR professional for about 3.5 decades. I've had the pleasure of knowing Denise for probably close to 2.5 decades now. And so while we were colleagues in the HR space, working in different organizations, the experiences that we had in the situations that we faced enabled us to see each other and forge a friendship.
Yeah, your company was a customer of mine. And so we had to cross paths on a couple issues. We won't go into that.
No, we don't need to be that candid.
But what we learned was we were so aligned in the way we viewed HR and how it impacts an organization. And so from that did come that friendship. And I think along the way, just that desire to say, and just teaching each other. I remember reaching out to you for advice and getting such good advice that I still use today. And so as we each have talked about in our own professional lives, how we've guided young leaders, experienced leaders, I think we just came away with a collective set of lessons that were like, you know what, this can help others.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was so interesting when we started the conversations around what would this podcast entail. And it was all about those lessons for leaders. They were experiences that we had. They were experiences or feedback that we got from those that we helped. And in percolating that down, came to recognize that it's all about candor and courage. And I struggle with the candor. So I am continually learning from you as we've talked about what candor is and so forth. But for our listeners, why is candor so important to you? And what is candor?
I actually fell backwards into candor, and I'll share later on a story of how I ripped the Band-Aid off of candor. But for me, it is sharing feedback with people that is kind, okay?
Good.
But it's designed to make them better, either as a supervisor or as a person that's being supervised. I've counseled people along the way and encouraged them to come forth with complete and accurate information. And again, when we get into deep dive into candor, what have we been told by our parents growing up? If you have nothing nice to say,
don't say anything at all.
There you go. And so I think that's the natural. I think most people learn that lesson. And so they carry that forth in their professional lives. But there is no growth if we are not completely forthright with the people around us and we invite them to be candid with us. We don't grow. So for me, candor was just putting aside the uncomfortableness of telling the truth and figuring out a way to provide feedback designed to grow people, develop their skills.
That's outstanding. And I think you made a really good point in reminding us of the lessons learned in what our parents advised us about, because there is a big difference between nice and kind.
Absolutely.
And I think nice tends to get run over.
Yeah, I will say in the future episode, let's save nice for social media, for parties, but where things matter in any relationship, but specifically at work, you have got to be forthright with people, and I call that candor.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So Maggie, she says she, struggles with candor. I struggle with courage. So my ask of you is, how would you describe for our listeners how you define courage?
Courage to me is really a combination of things. It's thinking about what is needed to achieve the most right outcome. And there's often fear. When you think about if I'm going to be candid with somebody, they might not like me anymore, for example. And so that comes with fear. As a professional, raising your hand and speaking up if there's something where the ship needs to be righted, or you don't feel like the right conclusion has been reached, or maybe we're going down the wrong path. There's just so many different opportunities where courage comes into play, because those are the same opportunities where you run right into fear.
Yeah.
And fear in the professional setting is fear of committing career suicide, right? Like, is my boss going to fire me if I ask for a raise?
Yeah.
I mean,
very common.
Yeah, it's a huge fear. And so what courage isn't is the absence of fear. Let me restate that.
Yeah,
so
I love
courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is recognizing that there's fear, but also recognizing that the outcome is not going to be achieved unless you practice the courage mindfully to weigh in, to speak up, to take action. I think a lot of folks think about the courage that's inherent or appears to be inherent in some professions. So you think about emergency responders.
Right.
Firefighters, police officers, law enforcement, those folks that run into the situations. And as HR professionals, we're probably kindred spirits with those folks, because we don't get to run away from those quote unquote fires at work. We have to run into them.
Right.
And so we're practicing, and we've been practicing courage because of the profession that we're in. We're alongside a lot of leaders that were not in quote unquote HR. They were managers of people in different roles and environments who likewise would run towards those issues rather than run away from them. But at the end of the day, the practicing of courage builds trust. It bolsters others to likewise be courageous, because you're setting the example. And it is a skill. It's one that can be developed. It's one that can be practiced. I still practice it, even in what I'm doing today. And it is a mindful endeavor to do what's necessary to achieve the desired outcome.
I love that. And I love that you just rephrased that, because for people that may be taking notes, that is the perfect summation of it. Because with me, I see candor and courage as hand in hand.
Totally.
You have to speak out, and say the truth in a kind way. Takes that moment where you have to say, you need to speak this, right?
I'm willing.
And so candor has been wrapped up in talking, but courage involves actions too. It's not just, being willing to speak or give feedback that is hard to deliver. It's taking those actions. And that's what I'm looking forward to learning the most from you, is taking the actions piece. Because I got the candor down pat. I can talk.
You do.
And I also loved what you said too about it building trust, because candor builds trust too.
Yes.
And, in my career, I have had a few moments where I've had people give me feedback and said, I trust you because I know you will tell me the truth.
Right.
And that has been one of the most rewarding benefits of being candid. So for those of you who sit back and go, I don't know how I'm going to tell somebody this feedback, you just have to vision the outcome that you're talking about with courage and plow through with guidance. We're going to give you guidance on how to employ candor and employ courage. So.
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand. And, sometimes I've been accused of enjoying the brutality as much as the honesty. And being brutally honest is not candor. And that's really what you have enlightened me on. As much as I think that I have been honest with folks, really understanding how candor is differentiated is something that I hope that as folks listen to the episodes to come and we talk in turn and focus more specifically on candor and then on courage, and ultimately share things that have inspired us, lessons that we've learned along the way, insights from our guests that we'll be inviting to speak about candor and courage at work, will ultimately provide that inspiration and encouragement.
Yeah, and we've talked too about our focus is at work, because that is our shared experience. But I know that you have been courageous in your personal life, and I have been candid in mine. And so these are skills that are not limited to work, but our focus, of course, is on work. And I laughed because there have been times where I've enjoyed some brutality along the way, but professionally, just getting in front of people and laying the groundwork. And again, we'll talk about that, but just not coming out of the gate and starting to be candid with people, that's not going to work. So
no, it is something to build up to.
You're
and it's
correct.
And it's a skill too, right? So finding a trusted colleague where you can share something and practice that. I have been the ghost speaker for folks. I've enabled folks through preparing scripts and let them role play with me so that skill and so that it's built and comes more naturally. And then they still have to be courageous when it really comes down to it.
Yeah, I think the thing that we both do is we continue to coach people. And we don't limit it to our team. We expand it to our coworkers. You practice candor with me. I practice candor with you. And of course, I value, everything she says now. No, I think that is where I get reward, is having an employee in my office and trusting me with what they're uncomfortable with at work and listening to them, but giving them that feedback on how to approach a conversation or a situation, and then following up with them afterwards and hearing what worked and what didn't work. But just continuing that dialogue, because ultimately in our role as HR professionals, we want to be a resource to associates.
Totally. Yeah. Helping develop leaders is one of the most rewarding aspects of being a leader, whether it be in human resources or a manager of people in some other area of focus. And you're mentioning people coming and talking with you about something that's uncomfortable for them at work. One, that's demonstrating courage. And two, when you're uncomfortable, that's when learning happens. And that's what I love about building the skills around candor and courage at work. And I think, again, future episodes, really, the next episode will be Denise focusing on candor and helping us understand that more in depth. And then we'll take a look at courage and talk about the different types of courage. It's not all the same.
It's not. And I look forward to, giving those actionable items that people can do and how they can use both candor and courage, just begin that journey, even if it's a baby step. But, it can be progress and it can be beneficial. So,
yeah. And when we have done that, then we will have achieved our goal of really helping professionals practice those skills and understand how beneficial they can be for candor and courage at work.
Yeah, and two, maybe they don't have a Denise or a Maggie where they work. So we look forward to hearing from our listeners some of those conversations that they're struggling with and how we can offer up some suggestions and, like you said, help people as much as we can.
Yep. Thanks very much for this good introduction. We hope it's been beneficial to the listeners to understand who, what, where, when, why, and how we're going about candor and courage at work.
Thank you for joining us today for Candor and Courage at Work.
We hope you found some inspiration and encouragement in today's episode.
For more information or to connect with us, visit our website, candorandcourageatwork.com, and be sure to download future episodes wherever you listen.